Welcome to another creative podcast, where creative outcasts come together to share their stories so we can all feel a little less lonely. I'm your host, Janelle Marquez. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode. Right off the jump, I do want to let you know that the title of this video is not clickbait. It is true. I did quit what I believe to be my dream job. I feel like I've had so much anxiety about sharing this news, and I'll be so honest, I haven't even shared the news yet with a couple people. It's more of like, if you know, you know. But if you have been a frequent listener of my podcast, you would be aware that I have been going through a lot, especially in the year of 2025. And if you haven't been listening to the podcast, I'll kind of give you a rundown. But back in, I'd say like at the end of May, beginning of June, I had a mental health crisis. I was struggling with a lot of negative thoughts, and I just didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. I kind of thought the only way to continue through life was to take myself out of it. And I'm sorry if this is dark, because I know some of y'all listen to this podcast first thing in the morning, but it's true. It's something I went through this summer. And after that, I tried to continue living my life. I tried to move past it, but nothing was really working. So from July, August, September, and then mid-October, I was in therapy for at least once a week. Some weeks I was in therapy twice a week. And that's kind of just because of how bad my mental state was. I was dealing with so much. And while some of the things I was like able to work through and heal from, other things just needed to happen. And one of those was leaving my job. I know there are episodes on the podcast where I've talked about my work, but if you're a new listener here, I was a social media manager for a company for the last almost 4 years. And it was the coolest job anyone could ever have. One of the many things I loved about this job was that it allowed me so much flexibility and freedom to still live my life, but still be able to work at the same time. However, I was just at a place with my job where I started to form a very unhealthy relationship with it. And to just fully be transparent, I was burnt out, and I had been burnt out for a while. I had a lot on my plate, and I continued to accept more and put more on my plate. And I just really struggled to say no and to ask for help. Those were just two things that were just very difficult for me. And I was in the type of job where I needed to be able to do both. And eventually all that just kind of led to burnout. And I feel like I never truly recovered from it. And I knew that something had to give at some point, because in August of this year, I took 1 week off from my job and I began a tattoo apprenticeship, and that was really awesome. And I got to rest for a couple of days after that. But when I went back to work, I didn't feel any better. I, in fact, actually felt worse. I just didn't know. I didn't know how to navigate leaving my job. I think as a creative, when you can find a stable career in the field that you want to be in, or in an industry you really want to be in, it is so difficult to leave. Like, how do you walk away from the thing that offers you everything you've always wanted? And then you start having thoughts of like, am I making a bad decision? Am I making the wrong move here? But I knew for me personally that something had to give. And at this point in my life, I was so sure of myself and everything I bring to the table and all that I'm able to do, that I knew I could walk away from this and be fine with whatever new journey I was about to embark on. And this was not an easy decision. I'll be so honest. These last few months leading up to my job were so challenging. I just remember walking into work most days just feeling so defeated because I internalized everything. So like something would go wrong and I would feel like it was because of me. Like everything that could go wrong, I always felt like some way, somehow it was my problem, even when it wasn't, even when I knew it wasn't, even when I was told it wasn't. I just felt like I carried so much weight on my shoulders. And that had nothing to do with anyone specifically. And it also had nothing to do with like any one thing in particularly. It really was just me being so burnt out and just feeling like the weight of the world was always on my shoulders and like it was my responsibility. Like these were just beliefs that I was creating in my head and I was believing them. It was just so hard for me to detach work and like myself as a person. I loved my job. I loved what I could do because I was so good at it. I knew I could produce numbers. I knew the quality of work I could produce. I knew all of it. But at the end of my run, the biggest thought I was constantly having was, I wish there was 2 of me. I wish there was 3 of me. I wish there was more of me to go around. But it just wasn't possible. Like that was such a hard pill to swallow because the truth is no one person should have to carry that much stress, that much workload. And I kept thinking, oh, I could do it. I could do this, I could do this, I could do this. So therefore I can do this. But I reached my limit and I didn't know how to say no. It took so much time in therapy and just sitting with myself to learn how to build up my self-esteem again, build up my self-confidence, learn how to set boundaries for myself, and to even know what's worth putting time and effort into versus what's not. And I, for so long, found that because I was so good at what I did, I felt like it's what I had to do. It felt like the only thing out there that was meant for me to be doing. And on top of that, the job I had, the people I worked with, the life I was able to have due to the job that I had, I only dreamed of having it. The people I met, the relationships I made, the things I was able to do, like it's what I dreamed of. Like I wanted to travel for my job. I wanted to be able to just spend all day taking photos. I wanted to be at events and meet people and network and just see people enjoy their lives. I loved it so much and I'm so happy that I was able to achieve so much. Like I have achieved so many goals at this age and I'm so happy I was able to do it within like my short but long time in this job. And I know that like I was able to do all those things because like I worked for it, but I had the best time at work when I was working with people, collaborating with my brewers, collaborating with my distiller, collaborating with my boss even. Like those are the days I'm always going to remember because they were the most fun. I loved being able to work with a team. I loved being able to just create stuff and tell stories. And it's still something I'm so incredibly passionate about. However, that was just a small part of the job. Those days were very few and in between. And after thinking about it, I realized like I'm meant to be out in the world creating relationships with people on the regular. It's exactly what I was doing before I became a social media manager. I used to be a barista. I used to be a server. And those 2 jobs were so rewarding because I genuinely feel like I am someone who's meant to serve others. I feel like that is one of my callings. I think I have a good vision in the sense of like creativity and passion and arts and stuff. But I think the type of person I am is like, I crave having real connections with humans. And funny enough, that's what this podcast has given me. I've connected with so many incredible people. You all know who you are if you're listening, because we talk often, and I'm so grateful for all of you. But that's kind of one of the reasons I started this podcast, is like to connect with people. But I learned over time that my heart needed that. And sitting behind a computer for hours and hours, hardly leaving my house even some days because I was just on a computer for so much, like that wasn't the life I wanted for myself anymore. And it was like a scary conclusion to come to that thought, because I just didn't have enough of me to go around. It also was difficult because, like I said, when you are creative and you find a career that is stable and secure, you want to hold on to that as long as you possibly can. I am very fortunate that I have managed my money very well and have been able to provide a very nice life for myself and my husband with the work that I've done. But I didn't think it was worth it anymore. I just knew that I had to sacrifice my consistent paycheck and my benefits to find something else that suits my lifestyle. And the week of Halloween, I did just that. By the first week of November, I had already left my job and started a new one. Leaving my job was incredibly bittersweet. I honestly was a little angry. I was mad for a while because I didn't want to quit my job. I didn't want to leave this, but I was kind of being forced to. I had to put myself first. I had to take care of myself. My mental health was so bad that I needed to get out of there for my sanity. The toxic relationship I had with that job was so unhealthy. I was obsessed with the work that I was doing. However, I think it was just the type of work that I was doing, not like the work itself. Like, I love creating. It's why I still have this podcast. It's why I still take photos on random days with a film camera, because I love to capture things. I love to put things together. I like to make silly little videos. It's one of my favorite things to do. But something about me, the type of work ethic I have is a little extreme. When I am good at something, I am good at it, and my perfectionist tendencies tend to kick in, and I will do anything and everything I need to do in order to succeed and be the best. And that is not realistic long term, and it leads to burnout. Unfortunately, I took way too long to learn that lesson. I was struggling with being average. I was struggling with doing the bare minimum. I just couldn't do that. A job is a job at the end of the day, but I was just too in it. I just couldn't stop thinking about my job. I couldn't stop thinking about my work. I couldn't even stop thinking about my industry. I was just obsessed. My phone, I was locked into my phone for hours and hours. Like, you couldn't get me off anytime I picked up my phone, I was working. I wasn't just doom scrolling on social media. No, I was working. I didn't know how to not work. I even developed a case of like Sunday scaries, which like I feel like we've all kind of heard about what like the Sunday scaries are, but like they are legit. I would get these really bad panic attacks every Sunday night for like the last 2-3 months of my job, where I felt like I couldn't breathe. I was going to pass out. I truly felt like I was going to die at some point because it was so intense. But I just had an unhealthy relationship with the work that I was doing, and we needed a split, and we did. I do want to take a moment and like talk about my work experience, because it was very different. It's not something I think most people will ever really have, but I was in a position where I had one boss and I was their only employee, and that was the most absolute perfect thing I could have asked for. While I like to say I'm a team player, like I am the cheerleader when it comes to like the type of person on a team. Like, I'm going to pick everyone up. I'm going to push everyone real hard. I'm going to be happy to help. But being the me that I was in my career, being so hungry to succeed and having so much self-motivation, having one boss was my dream. I'll never forget the first week I was hired, my boss had told me, I trust you until you give me a reason to not trust you. And those words held so much power to me because I knew that, okay, as long as I can show you that you can trust in me and you can rely on me and you can count on me for these things, this is going to work. And it did. To this day, I am so grateful to have the boss that I did because I feel like I was able to achieve so much success because I knew I had someone in my corner. I don't know how many people can actually say kind things about their bosses, but I have nothing but great things to say because my boss was being exactly what a boss could be while also being the perfect boss that I needed, because I am someone whose brain is just all over the place. But sometimes when we worked together and we were collaborating on a project, it felt like we were both speaking a language that only we knew. And as a creative, working with another creative like that is where the magic happens. I feel like my best work was done when I was collaborating with others, and specifically her. I grew so much and learned so much from her just from working underneath her. And I'm someone who isn't afraid to go out and make things happen. And my boss encouraged that of me. And my boss encouraged me to build my own relationships and carve my own paths and find my own ways to make things happen. And that kind of trust as a creative is so rare. It is so rare to be so respected, and to have that support for so long is why I was able to stay in this position for so long, because I had a team that I was a part of that I always wanted to come through for. And I will always just be so grateful for the opportunity that she gave me, because she believed in me as much as I believed in myself. And if you haven't met me in person, or we haven't had deep talks and stuff, you probably may not know, or if you do listen to the podcast, then you may know, I am kind of a crazy optimist. I truly think anything is possible. I think the world is yours. Whatever you want, you can have it. You can chase it. You can make it real. You just have to work for it and just have to do it. And a normal person would think that's crazy, or those thoughts are delusional, or okay, you must be living in La La Land where you think dreams come true, this and that. But average people have average thoughts. Your thoughts gotta be a little crazy at first if you want to make your dreams happen. That's at least what I believe. But from the beginning, I knew that when I spoke to my boss, she didn't think I was crazy. I'm just really glad that I had the experience I did. I know so many creatives don't ever have that experience, and I don't take it for granted. I never took it for granted. It was just time for me to move on and embark on a new chapter. And in case you're wondering, I have been working this entire time. In fact, I started a new job 2 weeks ago, and I have just been reminded that I made the best decision I could for myself at the time. And in case you're wondering if I have any regrets up until this point, I don't regret it one bit. If I'm being super honest, I've also just changed a lot as a person, and that job I outgrew it, and that's okay. I have received a lot of questions over the last few weeks, months. I was even talking to someone yesterday who didn't know that I left my job, and I told them that I'm working somewhere else, and they went ahead and asked me oh, are you doing social media management for them? And I was like, no. Oh, and then they were like, do you plan on doing it? And I was like, no. I have just outgrown that industry. I no longer care to be constantly worrying about views and likes and numbers and engagement. I just want to connect with people. I want to create and connect. And going into 2026, I really just want that to be that, to just create and connect. That's the whole point of this for me. Whatever happens, happens. And I'm okay with that. While I'm good at being a social media manager, I wasn't the best. In fact, I'm a better photographer. I'm a much better video editor than I was a social media manager. And those are things that I'm okay with just doing. But that's kind of it. I feel like this is a video that I jokingly would say, I can't wait to make this video. I can't wait to make this video. But then the time came and I almost wanted to like mourn the ending of this chapter as I was getting ready to like start a new one. And so this was one of those things for me that I just needed to sit with before I shared it with the rest of the world. I think it's important for creatives to share their experiences with outgrowing different aspects of their life. And for me, it's been my career. If you follow me on TikTok, I've been doing a series called I'm a Creative with a Career Crisis. And it's a joke, but it's also been so true. I had a weird year and I wanted to see what would happen if I gave my what ifs a shot. And it's the best thing I've ever done. So to kind of wrap up this bit of my experience, I kind of wanted to share some things that changed for me, because as a creative, boundaries are very difficult, but there are going to be things that are going to happen in your life that are going to force you to either make your boundaries stronger or you're going to break them. And having my mental health crisis was one of those this or that moments. And I can happily say the boundaries getting stronger was a much necessary change that needed to happen for me. To get a little bit more specific, I really just needed a work-life balance. I was struggling so hard to separate my personal life and my work. And one of the changes that I knew that needed to happen for me in my next chapter was having a job that I clock out from. This was a very difficult change, but I knew it was something that I just needed to happen. Another thing that needed to change for me was just working on my own things that have nothing to do with my job. I love creating content. I love to just take photos. I like to post on Instagram. I like to edit videos. But when your job was doing the same exact thing, it started to make me feel so guilty when I was working on my own projects, because I felt like I could be doing more for my job instead of for myself. And I knew that I wanted to have a job that was in a different career. Like I wanted to have a career or a job that was so separate from my passions. So that's another really big change that had to happen for me. And the last thing was like, if I'm going to be working, I want the work that I'm doing to actually align with my goals and just how I want to live my life regularly. So a big thing was just having a job that was social, having a job or a career that allowed me to make real connections with people. And I am so happy to say that I did find a new job that does provide me with all those things. And while I'm a little exhausted, the change has been so refreshing. So all that being said, I want to remind all of you out there that it is so scary to do the thing that might bring you a little bit of discomfort and that might take you out of your element. But when you're so confident and sure of yourself and what you bring to the table, the world is yours. It truly is. You can go out there and make whatever you want happen. I left my dream job, or at least what I thought was my dream job. And it's the best decision I ever made for myself. I am happy to answer any and all questions you guys have regarding this. I do have at least one episode kind of going more into depth about being a social media manager coming out soon, so keep your eye out on that. It's going to be a long one, but it's actually an episode that's been requested for some time, so I'm excited to get that out for you guys. I think a lot of you guys will find it incredibly insightful. But that is all that I have for you guys now. I'm so sorry I've held on to this secret for so long. It's been a crazy year, and this is actually going to be the last episode of 2025. And I started this podcast, I believe February or March. That is also one of the best decisions I ever made this year. And I'm excited to see where this podcast grows and where we all go together, because this brings me so much joy. With all that being said, I will be seeing you guys all in the next one. Bye.